Good morning. It's time for our daily devotion, and today we are in Hebrews chapter 9. Over the last few chapters, what we have seen is this beautiful picture that the writer of Hebrews draws, comparing the old order of priesthood, the priests who were human, who went to the tabernacle or later the temple and went into the Holy of Holies once a year. There was the Ark of the Covenant. There was the portrayal, the earthly portrayal of the holiest place in the presence of God, the mercy seat of God. That Ark of the Covenant contained the Ten Commandments, symbolizing the brokenness of man, the sinfulness of man, and God looking down on that sinfulness and brokenness. Once a year, the high priest would go in and he would take the blood of a calf or a ram or a sheep, and he would sprinkle it on the Ten Commandments, signifying that when God looked down through the blood, he saw no longer the broken Ten Commandments, but instead saw the blood, and because of the blood gave forgiveness. And here in this chapter we see that well-known verse that without the shedding of blood there is no remission of sin. But then the comparison to Jesus is what really sets this chapter apart in talking about how even though the priests of the old order had to go in once a year and offer continual sacrifices in order to continue to roll the sins forward a year at a time so that God could give temporary forgiveness for those sins, Jesus comes and he enters into the holiest place in the presence of God. The real mercy seat, not the one portrayed on earth, made out of things made with human hands, but he enters the real Holy of Holies, the real presence of God, before the real mercy seat of his Father. And there he presents not the blood of a goat or lamb or cattle, but he gives his own blood as a sacrifice for sin. Now, Hebrews is quick to tell us that once that happens, there is no longer a tie to the old order, to the old covenant, to the old way of doing things, the old priests, to the continual once a year sacrifices. That once Jesus comes into the real Holy of Holies, the real presence of God, the real mercy seat of God, and offers the real eternal sacrifice, his own blood, that sacrifice was made once and for all, never to be repeated again, never to be needed again. Once that blood is given to the Father at the mercy seat of God, we have forgiveness once and for all. That's the good news of the gospel. The good news of the gospel is that the old order, the old covenant is fulfilled. We are no longer under any obligation to that. The old order of priests has been done away with because there's no reason, no need, no necessity anymore to go forward once a year with those sacrifices. That our Jesus came, offered himself up as the once and for all sacrifice. His blood was shed, offered to the Father at the mercy seat of God, and there is now forgiveness once and for all. That is awesome news. We are now under the new covenant of the new priest in the new order of the New Testament. Forgiveness once and for all. All we need do is put our faith and trust in that one who came, our eternal high priest, who gave of himself and gave his life so that we might know forgiveness, real forgiveness, once and for all. Today, why don't you think about that? Think about the great sacrifice that Jesus made and the wonderful privilege we have to stand in grace before the throne of God, not because of what we have done, not because of what some earthly priest has done, not because the blood of an animal has been shed, but because of our eternal priest, Jesus, and the fact that he gave himself for us. Make it a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.